Now, it's been a long day, so forgive me if I drag on or if I stutter. I don't understand Christians. I don't hate them, I just don't understand them. I don't understand how a culture... Let me give you an example. Last year, I used to work at a GameStop store. And one evening, I was working with my coworker. His name is James. That's all I'm going to tell you about him. And 3 maybe junior high age children come into the store wearing not just your typical Christian t-shirts that say things like Jesus is love, true love waits, things like that. I get those, okay? I used to be a Christian, so I get it. But these shirts were just downright vulgar. One boy, and I'm finding it funny that it was a boy wearing a black t-shirt that said in red letters, abortion is homicide. The girl was wearing a shirt, what did it say? I don't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of premarital sex equals whore. How can you let your children wear something like that and expect people, A, to not react to it, and B, not think negatively of your children and you in the process? Now, I am not the sort of person that judges the child for the parent, but someone else who's a little mentally unbalanced might attack either mentally, verbally, or in some cases, perhaps even physically, your child just for having said shirt. How can you expect people not to react negatively to things like this? And I don't just mean kids wearing t-shirts that go, obviously, way too far. I'm also talking about street preachers, especially here south of the Mason-Dixon line, that love to stand on the street corners and shout at people that everyone's sinners are all going to hell and that gay people are an abomination against nature, which time and time again has been scientifically and medically proven otherwise, and not expect people to react to them. And when they do said things and people do react, they claim they're being persecuted when the opposite is actually true. I got a little intoxicated one evening, and while some fat fuck southern preacher was going on about how people who don't believe in God are going to hell and that da-da-da-da, and I was a bit shit-faced, I will admit this, but nevertheless, even if I were sober, even if anyone were shit-faced or sober, would probably agree with this. I went up to the preacher. I asked to borrow a young lady's lighter. She gave me her lighter to borrow. I handed it to the preacher and said, now tie me to that street post and set me on fire. The Bible says you have to do it. He said, no, I won't do it. I said, but the Bible says you have to kill me. It's your responsibility as a Christian. I handed him my pocket knife and I said, here, why don't you just cut my throat right here, right now, in front of everybody? It is your moral obligation as a Christian to kill me. And he said, no, I won't do it. Sir, I have just proven to you that you are not a true Christian. Exodus 22:18, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. See this nifty little pentagram ring? Exodus 22:18 says that not only should I not have this ring, but that I should die because of what I believe in. Well, didn't Jesus die because of what he believed in? Did not the Romans put him to death for standing up for his belief and for his followers? How can a culture that tells its women and girls that they are lesser beings than men and that they must submit to their husbands and fathers, who the fuck are you to tell people that 2 men being in love is wrong? Screw you, okay? Literally and figuratively. Go suck a big dirty one, okay? But how can you do these things, expect people not to react, and when they do, claim persecution? How can you claim persecution when that's practically all you do? Now, there are probably, I hope there are some decent Christians out there. My only childhood friend is a Baptist minister, and while I will never convert to Christianity, and while I will never agree completely with what his beliefs are, he is not a bad person. Okay? I don't hold that against him personally. It's been his life's dream to be a preacher, and I can admire anybody who follows their dream, to that regard. But I will never accept Christianity. Okay? I'm Wiccan, I'm pagan, I'm proud, I hug trees, I worship dirt, I talk to the moon, and I talk to my cats, and I talk to trees. And there's nothing at all that's wrong with that. But don't stand in street corners telling me that I'm such a bad person when standing on said street corner, you're in fact disobeying your own Bible. There's a verse in chapter 6 of Matthew, I believe it's the first verse. Hold on, I have a Bible here, let me go get it. Yeah, fancy a pagan that has one of these, huh? Let's see. Matthew chapter 6, verse 1. Be careful not to do good works in front of others. Don't do them to be seen by others. If you do, your Father in heaven will not reward you. Essentially, this verse is telling you to STFU. It goes on. Chapter 6, verse 5. Verses 2 and 3 and 4 refer specifically to people who give acts of charity as a public show. Verse 5 goes on to say, when you pray, do not be like those who only pretend to be holy. They love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners. They want to be seen by others. What I'm about to tell you is true. They have received their complete reward, as in people think they're fucking morons. Verse 6, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who can't be seen, as in keep your religion to yourself. He will reward you. Your Father sees what is done secretly. So you don't need to wear obscene t-shirts to prove that you're a Christian. You don't need to stand on a street corner and tell me I'm going to a place that doesn't exist. You don't need to pass oppressive legislature in the name of a false god to prove that you're really a Christian. If your God is real, he already knows. When you pray, do not keep talking on and on the way ungodly people do. They think that they will be heard because they talk a lot. Do not be like them. Your Father knows what you need even before you ask him. So keep it to yourself. People like Shock On Now, people like Ann Coulter, people like Fred Phelps are not real Christians. Real Christians are people who are kind to one another, who don't judge others even if they don't agree, even if they strongly disagree with another person. Don't judge them. Real Christians are people who drop dollar bills in the bucket or the cup when someone says, hey man, I'm really hungry, I haven't eaten in days. Here's something. God bless you, have a good day. Those are real Christians. You will never see a real Christian standing on a street corner, telling people thus and thus and thus and thus, you're a bad person. Those aren't real Christians. So fuck them.